So I'm back for part 2 of the Q&A video. Part 1 really was very lengthy and got away from me a little bit. So I'm just going to jump straight back into the questions. So the next question was favorite morning activities to get into a peaceful state, morning ritual recommendation. So if you guys watched my video where I had kind of that like mental health that is pretty much my morning routine every day anyway. Basically my morning routine is I wake up, I try and wake up around 6:30, but especially with ISO lately, with lockdown 2, with winter, with all of those things, I've been waking up more like 7:30. But anyway, I'll wake up and I try to go into the lounge room, get my yoga mat out and do some yoga first thing. That's pretty much my favorite way to start the morning. I feel a lot more centered when I start the morning like that, whereas the days where I get woken up by Lila yelling through the intercom, I feel like really stressed and like pulled in all these different directions, and that aggravates my anxiety. So I find that if I get up, I get straight onto my yoga mat and I have some time just to move. And I don't necessarily do yoga for like exercise sake. I don't do it to like get fit or to like tone my body or anything. It's mostly for me just about getting into my body first thing, because I know for a lot of us with anxiety, and something that I've found in the past is that I can wake up and be in my own head straight away. It's like as soon as I wake up, I have those anxious thoughts ruminating and on loop in my head. And so to wake up and to just be in my body, I spend a lot of time in downward dog and a lot of time in just extended child's pose. But just, moving my body in that way and just sitting in those poses and breathing, I find really grounding, and it reminds me that I don't need to spend time in that rumination. I can actually spend time in my body, not, paying so much attention to the anxiety, and instead just paying attention to my natural state. So that's pretty much my first thing, what I do. And then after yoga, I'll usually meditate because I'm already on the yoga mat. So I'll just pull over the bolster pillow and do roughly about 10 to 17 minutes of meditation. I know that's really like accurate, but it's just because the app that I use times my meditation, and 17 is usually the point where I will turn it off and look at my phone and be like, okay, 17 minutes again. And I will pretty much go into the kitchen, make a coffee, feed the dogs, and then it depends on what my day entails. If I'm working that day, usually I will try and go for a run quite early before work. And lately I've been taking Anthony with me as well, which has been really nice. It's been a really nice way to start my morning, so I've really been enjoying that. But if I have a day off work and I'm just going to be writing that day, then generally I will go for a run later in the day when my head's getting bogged down with thoughts and I just need to clear it. But yeah, pretty much my morning routine is loosely get up, do some yoga, do some meditation, have a coffee, and then whatever else. My recommendation would, I feel weird giving recommendations because I feel like I don't have my shit together most of the time, but if there's one thing that I found has helped my anxiety, it's definitely that just morning movement. Going for a walk, doing some yoga, going for a run if you have the energy and you want to. Just really anything that gets your body moving. And again, I'm not talking about exercise and kind of like changing your body or for getting fitter. I think that kind of takes away from the beauty of it and the magic of it. I think that when you're focusing on movement for exercise and for, like that can be good to an extent, but when it comes to anxiety, I think you just need to focus on movement as a way to just get back in touch with your body, because we spend so much time disconnected from ourselves and feeling unsafe in our own bodies and feeling like we are not in control of our own bodies. So it's nice to just have that time to just connect with yourself. I don't know why I'm really breathless right now. That answering that question just got me puffed out. The next question was, I know firsthand my anxiety gets through the roof the day after I drink. How would you deal with something like that? I have agoraphobia. I can go out places, but I either have to drink before or I just have to stay home. But I also like to drink, and all of my friends drink, and I feel like I would be the only one who doesn't. And I really enjoy drinking. Okay, so I can relate to that in a few ways. I mean, my experience with alcohol has been like, you know, kind of up and down. I think a lot of people's has. Through like maybe a month phase where I was drinking to get drunk every night because I was so fed up with the way my life was at that point in time. I was like, well, I can't go anywhere, maybe I'll just drink tonight. And so yeah, I would just drink and giggle and find everything funny. And then the thing was, in the morning though, I would feel so much worse. And I think that is, like you've said in this question, that is where a lot of us with anxiety trip up when it comes to drinking, because alcohol is a depressant. So it's going to make you feel more depressed. It's going to make you, it's going to make your nervous system go a bit haywire. So there's this thing called hangxiety, which is, you know, a hangover plus anxiety, and it's very real and it's a very, very crippling. I have had some very really bad hangovers with anxiety in my time, and they are gross. So I don't necessarily enjoy drinking to get drunk. Like I said, I went through a phase where I would do that, and then I kind of went back to just drinking when my friends were drinking, especially because that was something me and my friends would do. A lot of the time when I was, the years I spent agoraphobic, my friends would come to me, and for obvious reasons, and we would sit out on my deck and drink, you know, until the early hours of the morning. And I remember the first date that I went on, the one that I spoke about where I barely told the guy anything about myself. I got drunk as hell that night. It was really dumb. I didn't eat that whole day because I wanted to look less bloated, which is so ridiculous. And we met at a cocktail bar, and the first thing I did was order a really strong cocktail, and I think I got plastered from that first drink, but I just kept drinking. I lost count of how many drinks I had that night. The thing was, I was drinking because I was trying to appear more confident, and I was trying to be more comfortable in a situation that I was very uncomfortable in. And you know, I for a couple of hours I went along with this persona of this girl who drank and was really happy-go-lucky and confident and just not me. And then I got to a point where I realized how drunk I was, and I just wanted to go home. I felt sick and I just felt awful. And then that next morning I woke up with the worst hangover, and I was an anxious mess. I had to call my parents, and they came over, and I was curled up in a blanket on the couch just staring, and my dad looks at me and he says, "What's wrong with you?" And I just sat there and said, like, I don't want to live. And it, like, I'm laughing about it now, but at the time it was horrific. And I really kind of started, after that, I questioned everything about drinking. I was wondering, you know, I was like, why do I put myself through this? Why do I drink to appear more confident? And why do I drink to, you know, try and be somebody else? What, do I even like drinking? I did a lot of internal work after that. I went through a year of not drinking because I kind of was of the opinion that if I couldn't drink without, if I couldn't drink for the right reasons, then I didn't want to drink. So I just cut it out. And also there was a whole part of me that was scared to drink because of how bad that hangover was. So I was like, no, I have no business drinking. And then just before I met Anthony, I started drinking again, but only because I wanted to. And it wasn't like I'm going to go out and have a cocktail with friends. It was, I will have one glass of red wine with dinner because I'm eating a really nice Italian meal and I would like to have a glass of wine. So I kind of came to a place where I drank not because I wanted to get drunk, or not because my friends were drinking, or not because I wanted to be more confident. I drank because I enjoyed the taste of wine and I just wanted to have one to taste it, or maybe sometimes I have two. But for the most part, it's just that I just like to have a red wine with dinner. So it took me a while to get to that place. But I guess the point I'm making is that I know now that it's no good drinking to be more confident. Like, it kind of sounds like from this question that you are drinking, like you said, I can go out places, but I have to drink before, or I just have to stay home. If you are using drinking as a way to get out of the house, it's just another safety behavior. And I think you know as well as I do that that is a problem. But the thing that I want to say about that is the reason you're drinking to get out of the house is because, you know, you're like, okay, when I drink, I'm better able to go out because I feel more confident, or I feel less scared, or whatever it is. Alcohol isn't isn't the magic potion that's fixing you and making you able to go out. Alcohol is just silencing those ruminating thoughts. It's just, you know, those thoughts that we have, agoraphobics have before they leave the house of like, what if this happens? What if that happens? Da 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 da, you know, like freaking out about everything. The alcohol just kind of like loosens that voice a bit so you can't quite hear it. So it's not the alcohol that's helping you get out of the house. It's you that's getting out of the house. It's just that you're not listening to that voice that tells you everything that could go wrong. So it's not alcohol that's giving you the superpower. You already have that. You can find ways to get out of the house that don't require you relying on a drug to, you know, to liquor you up, to give you that confidence. The problem is that the more that you rely on that crutch, especially when it comes to drugs like alcohol, the more you rely on that, the more you're going to need, because your tolerance builds. So eventually you're going to need more and more alcohol to be able to get out of the house. And the thing with that is, if that's fine, but you're going to have to accept then that the next day you are going to be a mess, because alcohol is a depressant, because it makes your nervous system all jacked up. You're going to spend the next day feeling awful. So I think with me, I know that if I'm going to drink a lot, which is rare, especially this year because I haven't really gone anywhere or done anything, but I know that if I am going to drink a lot, then that next day I'm going to have to put in a lot more effort to take care of myself than I usually would. One thing that I do like to do if I know I'm going to drink, the next morning I will force myself to either go for a run or to get some kind of workout in, just to sweat the alcohol out, and also to just kind of, like I said before, to get back into my body and reconnect with myself. And it's not nice. I don't like that workout. I don't like that run because I have a headache and I feel awful, but I know that it's necessary. And, you know, just being really gentle with myself the next day besides the run. Basically, if you want to drink, if you enjoy drinking, that's fine. But I think you either need to cut yourself off at a point, you know, just have 1 or 2 glasses, or you need to accept this is fine if I'm going to go out and drink with my friends and get drunk, but I need to know that the next day I'm going to have to do a lot of extra self-care and a lot of extra support, and I am going to spend more time feeling anxious and feeling depressed and feeling afraid because of that alcohol. You know, it's kind of like if you feed a kid too much sugar, they're gonna go fucking bananas for the next 4 hours. And that's like, you either don't feed them the sugar because you don't want to deal with that, or you let them have the sugar and you deal with the next 4 hours of utter mayhem. I mean, everyone's preferences with alcohol are different. I think for the most part, it's safe to say that if you are using it as a crutch, it's probably something that you really need to start to question and find a better coping strategy. The next question was, how did you deal with agoraphobia while being pregnant? I feel weird answering this question because if you have watched my videos about perinatal depression, you'll know that I had a really shit pregnancy. I had zero fun that whole time, and I feel really bad saying that because I'm aware that my story isn't an inspiring one when it comes to pregnancy. People might be looking for an answer that's more inspiring than that, but that is all I've got. The thing was though, I fell pregnant at a time when I was already in a downslide. I had been diagnosed with agoraphobia like roughly 2 years before I fell pregnant. And it's not like I had been diagnosed with agoraphobia, I'd gotten better, and then I fell pregnant and went down again. It was like I got diagnosed with agoraphobia, I was going down, 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 fell pregnant, kept going down, 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 hit rock bottom, and then gave birth. So yeah, like I didn't have any coping skills when I was pregnant. I was still in a place with my anxiety where I was fighting it tooth and nail. I did not want to be where I was. I did not want to be in my own body. I didn't know how to cope with the feelings that I was having. So I think pregnancy really compounded that and made it feel a lot more intense. And that is why I had such a horrible time. But in saying that, having another baby is definitely in my plans. And I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't worried that the same thing is going to happen again. Of course, I'm nervous that I'm going to have a really yuck pregnancy a second time round, but I also know that I know a lot more now than I did back then. I have a lot more coping strategies. I have a totally different perspective on anxiety and on myself that I had back then. And I feel like even if it was You know, even if my anxiety increased during my next pregnancy, I know that I hope that I would have a different way of coping with it than last time, which was to not cope at all. But the thing that I think is the most important takeaway from that is if you have anxiety and agoraphobia and you want to get pregnant, please don't let having anxiety and agoraphobia put you off that. At the end of the day, pregnancy is 9 months. It's not your whole life. And like, it comes to an end, you know? After you've had your baby, it feels like it wasn't any time at all, really. Especially this year, like 9 months has just kind of flown by and I've done nothing. When I had my daughter, the game really changed for me and I had so much more motivation and inspiration to do exposure sessions. And if you guys have been watching my videos from back in the day, you'll know that she was always in the backseat of the car while I was doing my exposure sessions. She's always been my little sidekick and she still is, and I don't regret having a child at all. I think having anxiety in a lot of ways makes me a better parent. And I certainly would not let the fact that I still have panic attacks occasionally put me off the idea of falling pregnant again. And secondly, I think the other important takeaway, I think that the most important thing to do is to use the resources available to you. You guys know that I use the PANDA, the perinatal depression hotline in Australia, when I was having a really hard time, and I would not hesitate in utilizing that service again. It was amazing. There are so many good resources out there for pregnant women who are experiencing anxiety or depression, and use them. That's what they're there for. It's so important. Pregnancy can be a really magical time, but it can also be a really hard time, and it can be both as well at the same time. So it can be a lot. And yeah, don't be afraid to ask help. Don't be afraid to seek help. Don't be afraid to seek support. Don't be afraid to use those resources. I know when I first rang that hotline, I felt like I shouldn't, because I was like, but you know, I'm not sick enough, or I'm not like depressed enough or whatever. But the truth was, I was deeply suicidal at that time, and that's exactly what that service is for. So that's the number one thing that I say to the pregnant women who email me and ask about my experience. I'm like, look, to be totally honest, full disclosure, my pregnancy experience was horrific, but I'm so glad that I got the support that I needed, and I reached out and I asked for help, and I certainly wouldn't be afraid to do that a second time round. Yeah. Last question was, please give us more tips on toilet anxiety. Everyone's favorite topic. How to drive with people in the car without worrying that the worst will happen, and how to accept the worst case scenario and not worry. Honestly, this is still something that I have to practice. I'm definitely going to do some more videos on this. I have some kind of ideas in the pipeline. But the major thing that I want to tell you about it is that, like I said, it is a practice. There's nothing that's going to instantly cure your toilet anxiety. And the fun catch-22 is that the more you try and get rid of it, and the more you resent the fact that you think that way, the harder it gets, the more prevalent it gets, the more you think about it. So it's honestly, it's like life's most ridiculous joke. But yeah, the thing is though, it's kind of like learning a new language. It's going to take you a while. It's going to feel ridiculous in the beginning. It's not going to make any sense. It's going to be really hard to, you know, speak in that way rather than speaking in the language that you're used to, your first language. But eventually it starts to make more sense. Eventually you get fluent. Eventually it gets easier. It does eventually get easier, I promise you. Like I said, even though I do still struggle with this occasionally and it's something I still have to practice, the difference between me now and me back then in terms of toilet anxiety is phenomenal. I think when it comes to driving with people in the car without worrying about it, like I said, the thing is, the more you worry about it, the more you're going to worry about it. So that, like, the more you worry about worrying about it, the more you're going to worry about it. So you need to just take a step back. And I know it feels so hard to just say, just let go and just say, you know what, if the worst happens, then whatever, it's going to happen. I know that it's so hard to do that because I've been there, and I know you're like, oh, well, I wouldn't have this problem if I could just do that. I get it, believe me. But I think the most helpful way that you can start doing that, if this is something that's new to you, is practice it in small ways first. For example, if you are scared about, say you're scared about driving to your friend's house in the car with them or whatever, I don't know. Say you're scared about driving to the beach with your friend in the car. Instead of doing that and practicing letting go and surrendering during that moment, instead of just jumping straight into that and just practicing acceptance in that situation, I would start with other things first, like going for a walk by yourself. And, for example, with me, the river that I said I used to run and walk on, it's got public toilets, say every, I don't know, 500 meters or so along the track. There's like 7 of them. And in the beginning, when I first was trying to do exposure therapy, I would go to every single one of those toilet blocks on my walk. Like I would go to the toilet 7 times on a 15-minute walk. But eventually I started stretching that out. So instead of going to each toilet block, I would go to every second toilet block. And so I would really practice having that thought of, I need to pee, and saying to myself, okay, you can pee, but let's just wait until the next toilet block, or then the next toilet block after that. And so it was just a matter of like increasing that over time and kind of testing my own boundaries. And sometimes it didn't work. Sometimes I was like, no, I would freak out and I'd be like, I need to go to the toilet now. And so I'd run to the closest toilet block. But it did get easier over time. Eventually I got better at it. And then I got to a stage where instead of going to the toilet 7 times in 15 minutes, I would only go to the toilet once in 3 hours. But it is a practice. It is something you need to practice. So then after you've gotten comfortable with that, maybe then you won't be so nervous about getting in the car and driving to the beach with your friend, because you're like, well, that's only half an hour away. And I know that I've been able to do, an hour's walk and not need the toilet during that time. So I think I'll be okay. It's just practice it, repetition, and just continuing to remind yourself that it's okay for the worst to happen. And if the first time you do that, the other voice in your head says, it's not okay, that's all right. That voice is going to say that because you're so used to worrying about it. But the more you do it, the easier it's going to get. Whereas the more you worry, the easier that's going to get. So you kind of get to choose which way you go. But the thing is, it takes practice and it takes energy and it takes a lot of deliberate mental redirection to go the other way. So it's the harder option to choose. But you can absolutely do it, and I will make more videos on that topic as well. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet, hopefully. So I hope you guys are all having a really good day, and please let me know if there is anything you want to see next.